Okay, can everybody see my screen?
Yep, you're there.
Okay, I am very honored to be asked back to present to you guys. The last time I was with you, we discussed about where we were with the state of recycling, and we'll cover that. The first thing I wanted to do was take the opportunity to pull up the City of Grapevine's website about the services that are offered and the information that is available on the website. If you go to the grapevinetexas.gov website, look up solid waste, trash, garbage, you will see all kinds of information about what's available. There's a box where you can ask where things go. Is an opportunity to find out how to be a better recycler. And so it just kind of shows you some different things and how to recycle them and what can be done. And we'll cover a lot of that tonight. And then there is an opportunity to view your schedule. You can go in to view your schedule. And I picked a random address with Cindy's help. And you pull up the calendar and you can actually set reminders so that you know when your solid waste and recycling days are. We do have a green waste only program on the first and third Wednesday of every month where you can put out all of your green waste and that gets recycled. And then on the second, fourth, and fifth Wednesday, if there is a fifth Wednesday, then that is a bulk day. You can also put out your green waste, but it does not get recycled. So we obviously encourage you to get your green waste out on the first and third so that we can get that recycled. So it does give you an opportunity to put your address in and then view your schedule. The last time that I was here, there had been some changes on where we were able to send material, and we are no longer able to export anything over to China. They've closed the doors. So we have had to find other outlets to buy the commodities, and we'll talk about that just a little bit more when I go over to the how to recycle basics. So I just wanted you guys to see that there is an app that you can get. It's a free Recycle Coach app that's got a lot of very valuable information. You can download that as well. And then there's a lot of information that you can pull down from that as well. All right. So we'll go over to the Republic Services website, which is called recyclingsimplified.com. And there's a lot of information in here about knowing what to throw. Make sure you're putting the right material in your recycling container, paper, cardboard, metal cans, plastic bottles, and jugs. We are very fortunate at the Fort Worth MRF that we are able to accept glass. Although there is a cost to recycle it, we don't actually get paid for the commodity. At least we're able to recycle it. And that's used by a local company. It goes into countertops, carpet, flooring, glass rocks for your outdoor patios, a lot of things. So we are very fortunate to have that relationship. So let's talk a little bit about your cardboard and how it should be done. We want your paper, we want your flattened cardboard. And because you guys are in 65-gallon carts, sometimes if you're like me and you order a lot on Amazon, your boxes may not fit in your container even after you flatten them. So you can put them under the recycling container or beside it, and we will remove it. We take newspapers, magazines, office paper, junk mail. I noticed that we call it common mail. At my house, I call it junk mail. Because I do so much online, I don't get nearly as much mail as I used to, which is in my in my profession is actually a good thing, but I still get a lot of things that can be. So we talked about the last time that I was here about some of those envelopes that have paper on the outside, but they have a bubble wrap on the inside. So the problem with that is that that material, it cannot be recycled with the paper. And so it has to be, if it can be removed, then it can be recycled. But if it cannot be removed, then it is not, we are not able to recycle it. On your metal cans, before you recycle food and drink cans, you need to remove the paper or plastic labels and clean out any residual. So our mantra is empty, clean, and dry. So we ask that you rinse everything out and that you let it dry before you put it in the container so that we're not getting the other material wet. And like things like ketchup, mayonnaise, peanut butter, those are often very difficult to get clean. On peanut butter, I recommend you empty it, rinse it out, and let it cycle through with your dishwasher if you use a dishwasher, or hand wash it and let it dry. Mayonnaise, ketchup, mustard, that's a little bit easier to rinse out and be able to utilize. On the plastics, while hard plastic containers like water bottles, milk jugs, and detergent containers can go in, flexible plastics like grocery bags and bubble wrap and styrofoam cannot be recycled. We are at the Fort Worth facility able to get rid of some of those plastic bags, but we are discouraging people to using those and recycling them. I actually got a dog earlier this year, a puppy, and they're awesome to use for picking up dog poop and throwing it in the trash. So instead of going out and buying bags, you can use things that you already currently have. I've also found that a lot of those plastic containers can be used for other things. So I do try to do that. One of the things that we do educate people on, if you could poke your finger through the plastic, it doesn't belong in your recycling container. One of the questions that we get asked a lot is whether or not to remove the lid on a water bottle or a milk jug. If it's smaller than a credit card, it's better to throw it in the trash so that it does not jam up the machines. You always want to make sure, of course, that you have no soiled or wet materials that is going into the recycle bin, because what it does is it breaks down the paper. It can cause things to stick together and make it to where that we can never recycle it anyway. You don't ever want to bag your recycling. You put it loosely in the container. I realize that sometimes that's a problem on a windy day, and you'll see our drivers out picking up the material because it blew out, but you do not ever want to bag your recycling, regardless of whether or not it says it's a recycled bag, it's recyclable. We do not take bagged recycling. If you want to recycle shredded paper, we ask that you put that in a paper bag. And we do ask that you put all shredded paper in a paper bag so that it doesn't blow all over the place. No connected or mixed materials, as we talked about. So this is on the front of our website, Recycling Simplified. And this website has a lot of information. Know what to throw is very important, so that you know. It makes you a much better recycler. It also reduces the amount of contamination. So we'll go over here to the expert tips. And as you can see, there are lots of resources available to you on what to do. Recycling is something kind of new, where we ask you to think about what you're purchasing and how it's packaged and if it's recyclable or it's reusable. So that's something that kind of gives you an idea. Food waste. We don't ever want you to put anything that's had food in it that cannot be rinsed out. There's been a lot of questions about pizza boxes. Recently, the industry came back and said if it had grease in the box, it could still be recycled as long as it didn't have any cheese or pepperoni. So I would say that would be with any type of food product. No longer do you have to tear off the lid if it's grease or the bottom if it's grease. Let's talk about electronics. So the city of Grapevine actually has an electronics drop-off container across the street from their public works building that's there for televisions, computers, any type of e-waste that can be recycled, and that's available to the residents. So we do want you to recycle that. Recently, I upgraded an iPad and was able to get not a lot of money for it, but I was able to ship it back when the new one came in and get a discount on the new one. So we do ask that you check into things like that with your iPad and phones and computers and that types of thing. The holidays are coming, and there is very limited amount of packaging and wrapping that can be recycled. So this is certainly a good place for you to go and check that out. And of course, there's constant reminders on here about not bagging your recycling material. So that's another resource that is available through our website. There's residential resources, there's municipal resources, business resources, media resources. Here, know what to throw, empty, clean, and dry. Don't bag it. When in doubt, throw it out. But there's all kinds of things here that can help you to teach your kids and understand and we've got all kinds of activities for children on here and how to look for hidden objects and coloring pages and kids games and things like that. So I would ask that you go to the website, take some time, go through. We do have a special section on here for educators. We have a complete curriculum that goes pre-K all the way through 12th grade. They do virtual field trips. It is actually a curriculum where it's all year long how to teach. And the newly added thing that they put on here was at-home activities. So we have activities for all age kids to learn more and more about recycling. We'll just pick one here. So there's a video, and then there's a challenge, and then there's activities where you can learn more and teach more. And they've even given discussion questions and how to be a detective and whether or not it can be recycled. This is a lot of the presentations that we do in the schools. We have unfortunately not been able to do any thing in the schools since February, even though a lot of the schools are back in session. they're not allowing us to go in and do any presentations right now. So one of the other things I really want to emphasize is about, we see a lot of clothing, we see a lot of shoes. While those can be recycled by donating them or giving them away for reuse, we can't actually process those at the material recovery facility, which we refer to as the MRF. So that's one of the things that we see a lot of. We see a lot of garden hoses. Those are also not recyclable, and it causes all of our equipment to get jammed up. Then we have to shut down the entire processing plant to work around and get all of that taken care of. I'm trying to think of some of the other things. VHS tapes. VHS tapes are a nightmare for us. So it gets really wound around the machines, gets tighter and tighter, and then makes them lock up. As we've lost our ability to export to China most recently, we are seeing some other countries that are stepping in and wanting some of that material, but for the highest majority of it, if there's not a market for it today, and we know that it should be recycled, we are storing material around the country, making sure that we can put everything that we can back into being reprocessed. One of the major issues that you will see probably over time is less and less items will be able to be recycled. The thinner the water bottle gets, the less they can use that as virgin material. You see a lot about some of the bottling companies are considering going back to glass, which will cause some major issues because the more glass we get. People ask me all the time, if recycling is not cost effective any longer, why do people do it? And the major reason that we do it is because it's environmentally responsible. But the other side of that is you don't want to fill the landfills up with material that can be reused or recycled. I always encourage people to donate items, household appliances that they're just not going to use anymore, dishes, sheets, blankets, towels, all of that. You should be reusing that. And if you'll notice, a lot of the packaging, a lot of the things that you're ordering online, the amount of packaging that's in those boxes has been reduced down to minimal. And there's a reason for that. The more people that recycle, the more material that's out there, the less valuable the commodity becomes. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we'll go over and kind of try to answer some questions.
So let's see, Jerry, our first question is from Lori Clark. She is interested in supporting the recycling ecosystem. The organization or company that purchases the glass from Republic, do you have one point company that is making the countertops out of recycled glass?
No, they're actually the manufacturer, so it's being sold after it's made into other things. It's being sold so that it can go to the consumer.
Okay. And is there a name for the type of material that it becomes, the recycled glass? Does that make sense?
No, because it goes into other products.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense.
And most recently, I actually ordered some glass to put in my fire pit outside
Yes.
because it's such a pretty color when there's a fire.
Yeah.
And there's so many different levels of that. So
Interesting. Good. So we're also wondering if milk cartons, are they still recyclable, Jerry? Just a standard cardboard milk carton?
yes,
Okay.
yes, we'll take cartons.
Okay, and egg cartons are recyclable as well, but not the styrofoam type. Is that correct?
That is correct. No styrofoam.
Okay.
What happens with a styrofoam container when it hits the machine? It does exactly what styrofoam does at home. It goes,
Oh, kind of comes apart.
and then by the time you there's no way to bale it.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time you get it in a bale form, it's little bitty particles that they can't do anything with.
I see.
Now, there are some places that you can drop off styrofoam.
Mm-hmm.
But there was one in Louisville. I think they're closed now.
There's one in Keller, I believe.
And so, but they've even shortened the list on the type that they'll take.
Yes, from what I remember, and there may be an attendee present that can speak to this. The location in Keller, I don't think takes peanuts. I think it's a certain blocked type of styrofoam that they accept.
Right.
That's what I remember. So Jerry, talk a little bit about the numbers on the bottom of our recyclables. So, we have our triangle, and then what does the number represent? Is everything with a number on it recyclable?
No. Not everything with a number on it is recyclable. And one of the things that I noticed, and I don't remember what it was. Oh, my dog food bag. My dog food bag has a recycling symbol on it with a line barely marked through it.
Yeah.
It's not recyclable material.
Mm-hmm.
But you would think, because it's like a paper-ish, that it would be, but it's got coated plastic on it.
Interesting.
And so that makes it two types of material. So you will see a recycle logo with a number on it. That does not always mean that it's recyclable. Styrofoam, anything made with styrofoam is that. We still take 1 through 7, excluding 6, but I believe it's 3 and 5 that are now no longer going into their own bales. Mm-hmm. They're going into a mixed bale. And so what that means is, where it used to, every number had its own purpose. Mm-hmm. Well, as the commodity buyers are changing on that, then your 1s and your 2s go, but then I think it's 3 and 5, it's mixed with some 4s in there. And so it's really, the market drastically changed when China closed the door. Drastically.
So Jerry, when you talk about a bale, so those of us that haven't been to the MRF before, so once the items, the recyclables are shipped to the materials recovery facility, just super briefly, what happens to them and how do they end up in a bale?
Okay, so I'm glad you asked that question. Probably what I should have done was set up to do a video for that, but what happens is it's emptied out on the tipping floor and it goes up the conveyor belt. And we've got crews that are on both sides of the line and they're pulling out trash. I mean, that's really what they're doing. And as it gets past that, it goes into the optical sorter. And the optical sorter actually can tell if it's tin, which number of plastic it is, and all of that. And so it gets sorted into big bins. They're huge. They're like room size. Mm-hmm. And then once that bin is full, then it goes through the baler and they're made into square bales, and then we wrap wire around them.
Mhm.
And then the material is ready to ship out to whichever commodity buyer it goes to.
So Republic Services has recorded a really great video, and it's available on YouTube, and it shows the MRF in Plano when it was new, like it was just like when it first opened. So attendees, if you guys get on YouTube, you'll be able to see, you can search Republic Services materials recycling facility, and you'll be able to see it there. And it's extremely interesting, and it shows exactly what Jerry was mentioning here. Okay, we have a question from Ruth. She wanted to know about prescription bottles and lids. Traditionally, or right now, do you want those little brown prescription bottles and the lids attached, or are those recyclable at all, Jerry?
Actually, that it depends upon which pharmacy you go to, and it
Oh.
depends upon the material. Some of them are recyclable, but some of them, what happens when they get processed, they just crack and break. So it depends upon if it's a softer plastic or hard plastic. What I do is I recycle all medication bottles back to the pharmacy.
I see. Oh, okay. That's a good question then, attendees. Ask your pharmacist and your pharmacy if they accept those. And so Jerry, the links for the websites that you have looked at are just grapevinetexas.com, right? So you were on the City of Grapevine's environmental services page, and then you went to recyclingsimplified.com. Isn't that correct?
That is correct.
And those are just the two websites that you've been on tonight, correct?
Yes, those are the only two that I went on tonight.
Okay.
There is a lot of recycling information out there. What happens is, like today, if a Grapevine resident called into the call center and didn't say they were a Grapevine resident, they could say, "Do you accept glass?" And the call center is going to say no, because from a national footprint at Republic Services, we don't promote that we take glass.
Okay.
Because it depends upon where the material is recovered.
Okay.
So the City of Grapevine and Republic Services, we do a very good job of communicating together so that we're sending the same message.
That makes sense.
And so know what to throw isn't necessarily a Republic Services slogan. That's something that was done, I believe, with the North Texas Council of Government.
North Central Texas, it is, yes.
Right. So, but it is important that we use that as well, because you do need to know what to throw. When in doubt, throw it out. We didn't just come up with that, but we also don't want people to stand at the recycle bin, Googling everything. Okay, that could go, that can't. And when in doubt, throw it out. Because if you don't know and you put something in there that's contaminated, you can contaminate the entire load.
Correct.
Which is why we ask you to empty, clean, and dry.
Makes sense. Okay, so Rebecca is asking, she said, packaging from companies like HelloFresh sometimes has insulation in it that looks like brown cellulose peanuts sandwiched between brown paper layers. Is this recyclable? It is.
No,
it is not. Okay.
No, it is not.
Pots and pans used to be on the recycling poster as acceptable. What forms of scrap metal, if any, go into our recycling bin?
Well, oddly that you say that. I mean, we've gotten car parts in there.
Yeah.
As the sort line is sorting the material, and this is the thing about, you can't leave it all to the optical sorters, but they're pulling out anything that they see as metal, and then that gets recycled. They're not only just looking for trash, they're looking for items that perhaps the optical sorter would not catch. And so we still do put the pots and pans in the metal. It's just not done by the optical sorters.
Right. And so when we were at the MRF one time, you mentioned this and we want to touch on it. People had put car parts like a little carburetor or some sort of piece in there. And we're talking about simple metal. We're not talking about a carburetor or something that would be metal from a muffler, for instance. You wouldn't necessarily put large pieces that might have, you know, moving parts inside and that kind of thing in your recycling bin, right?
Right, because that carburetor likely has gasoline and oil in it.
Right.
Not that I'm a mechanic, but
Clearly I'm not either.
I'm pretty sure a carburetor would have gasoline in it.
Um,
But I mean that becomes an issue,
mm-hmm.
and it's a large issue because people will put things in there and say that your recycle cart had all paper in it,
Mm-hmm.
and then all of a sudden you throw in something that's contaminated with peanut butter or mayonnaise. Well, then that goes in the truck.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that touches is now contaminated.
That makes sense. I have a question from on our Q&A side now. So when you put shredded paper in the paper bag, Jerry, how does a resident close that? Do you want that paper bag just turned under, or you don't want a clip on it, a clothespin, nothing? It just needs to be turned down.
Yep.
Just to close. That makes sense.
And that really, there's lots of reasons for that. We can recycle the bag and the shredded paper in the paper load with no issue. We don't even have to open it.
Yeah.
And then you also don't have little bits of paper blowing behind the truck.
All over the place. Makes sense. Is there a certain type of metal can liner that makes a can not recyclable? Have you ever had a metal can that's got a different type of lining in it that might not be recyclable, Jerry? Oh, I thought that you know of. Okay.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Okay. What is the amount of bulk items versus the amount of clean brush? If there is more clean brush, and there probably is in the spring and fall, then how about making the 5th Wednesday a clean brush day? What is the amount of bulk items or something?
Okay, so I do notice that Rebecca is from the city of Mansfield. So I need to say that any information that I'm giving you guys tonight is based on living in the city of Grapevine.
City of Grapevine, yeah, yeah.
There is no limit to your bulk, and there is no limit to your green waste. And while I do not disagree that we could probably have more green waste days than we have bulk days, that's really not a Republic Services decision. This was something that because and I don't remember what year we actually added the green waste, but it's been in my time. But we wanted to take the green waste out of the bulk without reducing the service to the city residents. So there are probably, you're probably going to have people on extreme, everything should be green waste on Wednesday. And then you're going to have people on the other side that say, we don't care about green waste. And so I think this was kind of our meet in the middle. But that really, if Dewey is on, would be more Dewey question.
Dewey's not with us, but Jimmy is here from Environmental Services. But yeah, that's going to be a city decision rather than something Republic, a decision that Republic would make. So this is a good question from Linda. When you receive items that are not recyclable, Jerry, what happens to them? And what problems do they cause you? So, you know, what happens at the MRF to all of that stuff that your ladies and gentlemen are pulling off the line, it takes them time to pull it off of the line, and then that has to be hauled off to the landfill.
Yes.
But when people are throwing things in there, items in there like batteries or other things that are not recyclable. Talk about the issue that causes, the problem that causes if you put a NiCad battery or something like that in your recycling bin.
Well, it ends up in the landfill. So if your intent is to recycle it, then you've kind of lost that opportunity, because that would be more of an e-waste or an HHW situation. There's a lot of places that do have battery drop-off recycling. And so I encourage anyone that's an avid recycler to really learn what happens with that. Paint can be recycled, but it can't be recycled in your curbside cart. A computer is recycled, but it can't go in there because we don't have the ability to do anything with that. So what happens when you do that, it ends up in the landfill.
Yeah. Do you have resources to recycle compostables from a household versus a business? So items that might be compostable. Do you have, so Republic Services has a subcontract with a company that composts or accepts food waste, right, Jerry? But does Republic have any relationships with companies that are dealing with compostables on a residential side at all? Not right now.
No, that is a frequently asked question that we get a lot. And here's the thing. In order to have a compost facility that accepts food, like your green waste goes to a compost facility, but they don't accept food, you have to have double the amount of brush to mix in with that food composting. And there's just not a large enough market for it in Texas today.
Yeah, I understand. What about yogurt containers? Just a Yoplait yogurt container, or are those recyclable? If they're clean and dry, they're recyclable, right?
Yes, absolutely.
What's your most valuable commodity, Jerry, that you guys take from a recycling standpoint? What is selling the most right now once it's in a bale? Do you know?
I would say plastics and cardboard. And plastics being water bottles, good to go contain that type of plastic, which is what, a number 1 or 2. It depends upon which brand of water you buy, but that would probably be the most today.
Jerry, if somebody shreds credit cards in their paper material, just you've got a bag of shredded paper, but there's credit card shreds in there as well, does that contaminate the entire bag? Yeah.
It's a different type of material. So that's the thing that you have to think about when you're recycling, whether or not the entire thing is made up of the same type of material. That's why a lot of your frozen food bags, other than the food contamination, there's usually a different lining on the outside than on the inside. And if you took think about this, if you take a frozen dinner, any brand, you've got a cardboard outer, you've got a plastic or metal lid that you take off of it. The bottom of it is something else. So you have to really think about, they have to all be separated. Even in a cardboard box, if you put, you got a cardboard box and you put a bunch of plastic in it and you put that all in the recycle containers all together, it gets processed that way because there are no little minions standing down there on the bottom of the tipping floor emptying that stuff out.
Right. Right. That's why recyclables just should not be bound together. Everything needs to be clean and dry and put in your cart separated, not inside anything else.
Right. And the commodity that we received the most money off of in the early days of recycling was cardboard. But now, as much online shopping, it's kind of, the commodity is overrun. So it became, it used to be $2.45 a ton for cardboard, and now it's less than $20.
Wow. That's quite a fluctuation. My goodness. I have a question from Dan. He saw a post that said our recycling rate for the city of Grapevine was around 22%. Does that seem low to you compared to what other cities our size have? And how can we improve that? Our recycling rate, recycling versus solid waste.
Okay, well, are we talking, wait a second. Are we talking about the amount of money you pay or the amount that you recycle?
The amount we recycle.
Okay. I wouldn't say that you're on the low end. Could we do better? We can always do better. So yes, I would have to say yes. But we could do better with knowing what to recycle rather than the amount that you recycle.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because that number, that recycling rate number comes from what's in the recycling carts when they arrive at the MRF, correct? It doesn't mean that everything in that recycling truck is recyclable. It's very possible that some of those contents are contaminated.
That is correct. As a matter of fact, we just did an audit earlier this month, I believe, and I got the results, and I haven't had a chance to meet with environmental services yet. But I think you can always do better. I mean, I think we can do better with what we put in the landfills. So I certainly think that we can do better with what we can recycle. Things like, I'm a huge shoe person. I buy a lot of shoes. I mean, a lot. But I've gotten into the habit when I go to DSW to buy a pair of shoes, I drop off a pair of shoes.
Yeah.
Because they have a big donation thing.
They do.
So that way they're not going in the landfill. I'm certainly not going to recycle them.
Yeah.
And I'm not just stacking up a bunch of shoes in the closet. So I think as a consumer, we can all do better with reduce, reuse, recycle, always.
Agreed. So Matt wants to know if we can recycle the clear plastic product packaging that's often formed around the product that's difficult to remove. So, oh gosh, there's a million things. It's almost like it's shrink wrapped. It's got cardboard around it, Jerry. It's hard plastic. You have to cut it off with the scissors. Is that plastic and that cardboard piece, do we put that in the recycling bin or in our trash cart? Trash.
Now, the one that you were talking about, if we're just talking about the plastic around something, if you can stick your finger through it, no.
Right. So our environmental services division, Jimmy, if you're on, just remind us, so household hazardous waste, which takes place in the spring, I believe that during that event, the company is present where we can bring styrofoam. So Linda reminded me of that, and I think that's the event where we can drop off styrofoam in the city. let's see.
I,
Glasses. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Cindy, I would double check with Jimmy because there's a recycling event this weekend.
Yes.
It's not part of the HHW event in the spring,
Uh-huh.
and they may be able to bring it to that event. But so we probably need to get clarification on that and send it out to the group.
Yep. Absolutely. I sure will do that. Let's see. Jerry, did you touch on the envelopes with clear windows? What did you say that at the very beginning of the lecture? Are those recyclable? Okay.
No, it's a mix of material.
Okay.
Now they do get recycled because they go into a mixed load,
Okay.
but the proper way to do it is take the window out.
Ah, makes sense. Okay. And yes, attendees, our meeting, our webinar tonight will be recorded, and the link for that will go to you tomorrow, and a thank you email will be sent out to everybody. What about the plastic that's used for fresh fruit? So that little flimsy sack since we can put our, yeah. And then for top on or top off on the bottles, meaning the lids, where are we at right now, recycling wise, with the lids on the plastic bottles? You want them off or you want them on?
Okay.
One more
Leave
time.
them on if you're recycling them.
Okay.
If you don't want, because it is two different types of plastic, but you don't separate them and put them in the recycle
that
cart.
That makes sense.
But the actual proper way is to take the lid off, and the lid goes in the trash because it can't go through the MRF.
Okay.
Smaller than a credit card.
Makes sense. Okay. Let me see. Does anybody else have any more questions from the group? Just as a reminder, everybody. So Jerry talked about those Amazon or other envelopes that come with a bubble wrap on the interior and a plastic on the outside. If the materials can be separated, the bubble wrap, Jerry, is that is not recyclable, but the plastic on the outside, if it's thick enough, is. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. And to get your recyclables clean and dry at my house, we run them through the dishwasher. So Jerry mentioned that if you've got that peanut butter is not going to come out and you'll be standing there for 3 days trying to fish it all out. Run it through the dishwasher, leave it on the counter to dry out, throw the lid on, and then we put it in the recycling bin. And again, don't bag your recyclables. One of the things I noticed, even when we're out on cleanups, I'll have black trash bags for trash, and then I have blue bags for recycling. Well, we put all of our recyclables in the blue bag. It all needs to come out and go in the recycling dumpster. Let's see. And the bottom line really for all of us is to reduce our waste. Republic is more than happy to take all of our litter, all of our trash, all of our recyclables. But if we can reduce the amount of items that come into our home, that's when we really are doing our best. And we did get feedback from Jimmy at Environmental Services, and he said that Saturday, November the 7th, they will be if you are a Grapevine resident, they're having the Grapevine Recycles Day. They will be taking block foam and peanuts at the event. So you need to be a Grapevine resident. And then that's a self-service event. So historically, you've been able to drive through the service center and hand your items to volunteers. This year, you'll be able to get out and then place your items, styrofoam and other items, into the bins to have those items recycled or donated. Does anybody else have any other questions for Jerry this evening?
I do notice that we do have a hand raised.
Oh.
Greg Jones.
Greg, if you would type your question into the question box if you haven't already, we are more than happy to answer your question. What about clamshell plastic containers? So the ones with the tomatoes or blueberries, things like that, Jerry.
Do what?
What about clamshell containers? No,
No, no.
not recyclable. Jerry, does Recycling Simplified, does that address the numbers that are on the bottom of recyclables or plastic items? The Recycling Simplified website?
Let's see, just a second and I'll tell you.
So you guys, just to revisit, green waste is brush and bulk and yard waste. So those items go inside a leaf bag, which is those brown leaf bags. You can get them at Home Depot or Lowe's. Those items need to go in those bags and not in trash bags. So even if you put them on the side of the road, on the street, on yard waste day, they're going to end up in the landfill, not in not recycled, not in the compost pile.
So we do not talk about the numbers because the numbers are kind of an old school thing. We talk about the type of plastic and what those containers are, instead of so much of going by the numbers. And I was just looked at a couple of things that are the litter on my desk because I've been Zooming all day.
Yeah.
And I noticed that some of the newer products don't even have a number. It's just a logo. So that could be, and I'll verify this, Cindy, and send that back out to you. But it could be that the industry standard is moving away from actual numbers.
Interesting.
But,
so as we talk about anything smaller than a credit card, so staples on paper, that is not recyclable. So if you've got staples on papers, they need to be removed. Put the staples in the trash, put the paper clean and dry in your recycling bin. Yes, glass is recyclable. Receipt paper, if it's larger than a credit card, it is recyclable. And batteries are a fire hazard. So if you have batteries, they need to go where, Jerry? Any kind of battery. So a AA, a NiCad, where does batteries need to be properly disposed of?
They should go back to a battery recycler, and I don't like. There's Office Depot. I mean, there's lots of places. You guys don't have a curbside. Excuse me, a curbside program with us, but we do accept those through the curbside programs that we do in Flower Mound and Coppell. But there's a lot. Not every battery can be recycled. So you have to understand which batteries are supposed to be recycled and which ones are not. It is not hazardous if you throw a couple of AA batteries into your trash. They're not going to blow up our truck. If you throw away 10 million, then you've got a hazard. But I personally throw my batteries in the trash.
Okay. And I understand, Jimmy, you can clarify this for us, but I believe that the November 7th event for Grapevine Recycles Day, you guys are accepting batteries. I believe that's a feedback I'm seeing here. So Jerry, the claw truck. So when claw truck comes and has to pick up, the city may call you guys to come and pick up a large amount of brush or tree branches and things like that. Are those items taken somewhere else and mulched? I believe that's the agreement that the city has. Is that correct? Is that through Republic?
Yes, it goes to the at our landfill that we take everything. They have a mulching program.
Yeah.
And so all of that material goes over to them.
Yeah, so that's important that we properly dispose of our yard waste and branches and things like that. Environmental Services has clarified that yes, batteries will be accepted at Grapevine Recycles Day. And if you guys need more information about that, go to the City of Grapevine website under Public Services in the Environmental Services Division, and there's all the information is there about the Grapevine Recycles Day, which is coming up on the 7th. If anybody has any more questions?
You know, Cindy, I always worry about how I'm going to fill this hour, but you guys never let me down.
You can count on Grapevine. We're going to come through. You never have to worry about that. All right, one more question. Mattresses. Do you guys pick up mattresses up on bulk day, Jerry?
We sure do. Put your mother-in-law out there. We'll take her.
There you go. All right. That's good to know. Well, Jerry, I want to thank you for spending the last hour with us. I know every time that you come and speak to us, I learn so much, and I know that our residents and attendees benefit from you being with us as well. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the invite back.
Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you guys for joining us tonight. Again, thank you, Jerry, for spending your time with us. Residents, be sure that you have downloaded the Recycling Coach app. That is a really cool little app, and they have a great deal of resources on it. The information of Republic's pickup days and brush and bulk pickup, there are on there. There's all kinds of educational material in that app, and so that comes in handy. Look for emails from us about our 2021 educational lecture series. We've got lots of really great, exciting lectures planned for 2021, and we will definitely let everybody know about that. So again, thank you for attending tonight, and Jerry, thanks so much. Everybody have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.